Most people would have looked at my life and called it solid. Good job. Nice house. Quiet street. A wife who still smiled in photos. The kind of life that makes other people think a man has it figured out. That was the joke. My name is Elias Thorne. I was 45 when my marriage finally broke open, and the worst part is, by then it had probably been dead for a while. I just hadn't accepted it yet. I'm an engineer by trade. Not because I'm some genius. Mostly because I like things that make sense. I like structure. I like cause and effect. I like knowing that when something starts to fail, there are signs. My father was a carpenter, and he used to say a house will warn you before it gives out. A soft spot in the floor. A crack near the frame. A door that doesn't sit right anymore. Marriage is like that too. The trouble is, when it's your own house, you get real good at pretending you don't hear the creaks. Maya was 38. Warm, funny, easy with people. The kind of woman who could walk into a room and make it feel less heavy just by being there. For a long time, I thought that was enough. I was the steady one. She was the spark. That was the arrangement, whether we ever said it out loud or not. For 7 years, I believed we worked. Then one morning, she flinched when I touched her. That was it. No explosion. No smoking gun. Just a Tuesday in the kitchen. I came up behind her, put my arms around her waist, and felt her body tense like I was somebody she didn't want near her. "You okay?" I asked. "Just tired," she said. She didn't even turn around. That should have been a small moment. It wasn't. Because once you feel that kind of distance, you start seeing it everywhere. The house got quieter after that. Not peaceful. Just empty in a way that made sound feel unwelcome. She stopped asking about my day. Stopped telling me about hers. We still talked, but it was the kind of talking people do when they're trapped in an elevator. Functional. Polite. Dead. You can live beside somebody a long time before you admit they already left you. One night I made spaghetti because it used to be one of her favorites. Nothing fancy. Just dinner. Just a husband trying to act like routine could still save something. She barely touched it. "Everything okay?" I asked. "It's fine." That word again. Fine is what people say when they don't care enough to tell the truth. That was also the night I noticed she wasn't wearing her ring. She said her fingers had been swelling at work. Later, I found it in a dish in the bathroom, half covered by a couple cheap earrings I didn't recognize. I stood there longer than I should have, just staring at it. It's a strange thing, realizing the symbol of your marriage has already been taken off before the marriage itself has. The phone passcode came next. For years, neither of us made a thing out of that. Then one evening I picked up her phone off the counter and saw the code had changed. I asked about it. She gave me some simple answer about security rules at work. Maybe it was true. That wasn't really the point. The point was, she had started closing doors without telling me. And I felt it. The next morning I sat in the garage before work, lights off, engine cold, staring at nothing. I remember feeling embarrassed by how bad it hurt. Like I should have been stronger than that. Like a grown man shouldn't feel his chest cave in over a 6-digit number. But it wasn't the code. It was what the code meant. That was the morning I stopped lying to myself. I bought a small notebook and kept it hidden in my toolbox. Nothing dramatic. Just dates. Small things. Charges that didn't add up. Schedule changes that made no sense. A restaurant receipt too far from her bank to explain away. The smell of cologne on her sweater one night when she came home. I hated myself for it at first. Then I hated how necessary it felt. And then there was Jackson. He lived 2 houses down. Mid-30s. Friendly in that lazy, practiced way some men are. The kind of guy who always seemed available in the middle of the day and somehow never seemed worried about money. I never liked him much, but I also never thought he mattered. Turns out, that was my mistake. One Friday I told Maya I'd be at work all day. Instead, I parked down the block where I could see the driveway and waited. At 10:17 that morning, Jackson pulled up. No hesitation. No nerves. No looking around. He walked to my front door and let himself in like he belonged there. I can still feel what that did to me. My hands locked around the steering wheel so hard my wrists hurt. My vision went narrow. Every stupid, violent instinct showed up at once. I wanted to go through that front door like a wrecking ball. I wanted noise. I wanted blood in somebody's mouth. I wanted them both to feel, in one ugly second, what they had done to me. But I stayed in the car. Not because I was calm. Because I knew that once a man loses control, he usually loses everything else right after. So I sat there and let the truth do its work. That was the day hope died. The next 2 weeks were just cleanup. A hotel booking. Messages she thought she had hidden. Story after story that fell apart the second I stopped helping her hold them together in my own mind. By the time I confronted her, I didn't need a confession. I needed an ending. She told me she was covering an extra shift that Friday night. I already knew where she was going. I got to the hotel before she did and sat in the lobby where I could see the entrance. When she walked in with Jackson, they were laughing. That was the part that cut deepest. Not the affair itself. Not really. It was the ease of it. The comfort. The fact that she looked lighter with him than she had with me in months. Like she had been saving the best version of herself for another man while I paid the mortgage and kept the lights on. I stood up and said her name. She stopped dead. I've thought about that moment a lot. Not because I enjoyed it. Because that was the exact second the pretending ended. For both of us. Elias, I held up a hand. I know. That was all I said at first. Jackson looked at her, then at me, then back at her again. You could see him trying to measure what kind of man he was dealing with. Whether I was going to yell. Swing. Collapse. Beg. I gave him nothing. I told Maya I had already spoken to an attorney. I told her there was nothing she could say in that hotel lobby that would change what this was. She cried fast, which told me she had expected to get caught eventually, just not there and not then. Then came the usual rotation. Tears. Excuses. Half-truths. Claims that it wasn't what I thought, even though it was exactly what I thought. Jackson tried to say something once, probably to defend himself, and I looked at him hard enough that he shut up. That's the thing about men like him. They love borrowed territory. They just don't love consequences. I left them standing there. I went home alone, walked through my front door, and stood in the dark living room listening to the silence. No TV. No music. No fake normal. Just the truth. And the truth was ugly, but at least it was finally honest. The divorce wasn't dramatic. It was worse than dramatic. It was administrative. Meetings. Statements. Forms. Dead-eyed conversations with attorneys who had seen this same story 1,000 different ways. Splitting accounts. Splitting furniture. Taking framed pictures off walls and finding clean paint underneath where a whole life used to hang. That kind of pain doesn't come all at once. It comes in pieces. You find it in a coffee mug she used every morning. In an empty side of the closet. In the instinct to text her something small before remembering there is no us left to text from. Maya came back once, about 3 weeks later. She stood on the porch crying, saying she'd made a mistake. Saying Jackson meant nothing. saying she had been unhappy and stupid and selfish and didn't realize what she was throwing away until it was gone. I stood on the other side of the door and listened. And I'll tell the truth about that too. Part of me wanted to open it. Not because I trusted her. Not because I believed a word she was saying. But because when you build a life with someone, your body doesn't stop reaching for them just because your mind has caught up first. That's the part nobody talks about. You can know better and still hurt like hell. But I didn't open the door. Because somewhere in those last few weeks, I had finally learned the difference between love and self-respect. Missing someone is not the same as believing them. Wanting your old life back is not the same as wanting back the person who destroyed it. So I let her cry. I let her say everything she came to say. And when she finally understood the door was staying shut, she left. That was the real end. Not the hotel. Not the paperwork. That sound of her footsteps leaving the porch. A few months later, I took a job in another city and moved into a smaller house that didn't know anything about me yet. Bare walls. Folding chair in the living room. Take-out containers in the trash because I hadn't even bought plates I liked. The first week there, the silence felt huge. I won't romanticize that part. Starting over at 45 felt humiliating some nights. I'd sit there with a drink in my hand, looking around at a half-unpacked room, wondering whether I had rebuilt my life or just survived the demolition. But then things got quieter inside me. Not all at once. Just enough to notice. I stopped checking my phone with dread in my stomach. Stopped listening for lies. Stopped feeling that constant low-level tension that had become so normal I barely recognized it while I was living inside it. I started sleeping through the night again. Then one morning I realized I had made coffee, stood outside, watched the sun come up, and gone almost 10 full minutes without thinking about her. That was bigger than it sounds. After a while, peace stops feeling foreign. After a while, it starts feeling earned. I got back to being myself. Early mornings. Work. Weekend projects. Long drives with no destination. A life that was quiet, but clean. Honest. Mine. I met Laura almost a year later. No fireworks. No dramatic twist. We met through work, had a conversation that felt easy, then another one, then another. What got me about her wasn't chemistry in the movie sense. It was the absence of confusion. She said what she meant. She meant what she said. She didn't play hot and cold. She didn't make warmth feel like a prize you had to earn. Being around her felt restful. That's when I understood how tired I had been. For years, I thought being a good man meant carrying everything without complaint. Staying steady. Staying useful. Staying loyal even when it started costing me pieces of myself. There is honor in being dependable. There is no honor in volunteering to be humiliated. That took me too long to learn. I didn't walk away because I stopped loving Maya in one clean moment. That's not how real life works. I walked away because love without trust rots. It turns sour. It turns degrading. And sooner or later, a man has to decide whether he wants companionship or dignity. I chose dignity. Late, maybe. But not too late. So no, I don't think I was cold. I think I was finally honest. And looking back now, that wasn't the collapse of my life. It was the first time in years I stopped protecting a lie just because I was afraid to lose what was built around it. That wasn't weakness. That was the day I remembered I still had a backbone.